The clerk will close the roll and tally the vote. Ayes 56, noes 5. The resolution is adopted. File item 44, SB 1255. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 1255 by Senator Morlock, enacting the family law.
Mr. Wilk, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I rise today to present SB 1255 on behalf of Senator Morlock. Current law requires couples that are separating in anticipation for divorce proceedings to demonstrate that they are, quote, living separate and apart, end quote, in order to establish a date of separation. A recent court ruling determined this to mean that the couple must have separate residence in order to establish the date of separation. This ruling takes away a couple's freedom to decide what arrangements works best for their circumstances, whether it is to save money going into the divorce proceedings or to maintain stability in co-parenting children. A divorcing couple should have the flexibility and control over their situation as they go through this difficult ordeal. SB 1255 defines date of separation as the date that a complete and final breakup in the marital relationship has occurred, and directs the court to take into account all relevant evidence in determining that date of separation. Living under the same roof would no longer be a barrier to establishing date of separation, but merely a factor to consider in the court's analysis. AB 1255 is supported by the Family Law section of the California State Bar and has received bipartisan support. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Wilk. Mr. Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Regrettably, I've got to rise in opposition to what I think is a well-intended but ultimately potentially disastrous bill. I neglected the opportunity, passed on the opportunity to carry this bill when the lawyers brought it to me, and it's my understanding that all of the other lawyers on the floor in this chamber were passed on carrying this bill for a couple of reasons. What it does is provide our courts with more work. What it does is provide our lawyers with more opportunity to bill divorcing clients at some of the more difficult times of their lives. And in addition to overburdening our courts and to being a full employment act for lawyers, what it does is it takes a very clear, bright line that the courts have said is the right thing in these divorce circumstances for us to have, and thoroughly muddies it up. Where it gets dangerous, not just that it's expensive and not just that our courts are already overburdened, but where it gets dangerous is that now we are not only allowing, but we are encouraging couples, and we're told for whatever reason by the floor manager, whatever reason they want to continue living together, they can continue living together. Well, one of the reasons that mind-bogglingly was given to us in the Judiciary Committee hearing as a reason to live together is because it's too expensive to have separate residences, and maybe the parents want to be able to continue dating so they can just bring the new date home to the same house. Now, some of us scratched our heads at that as a reason for supporting this bill, but honestly, that's what was said in the Judiciary Committee. But even worse, you've got divorcing parents living under the same roof. This body rightly is concerned about domestic violence. Why in the world would we encourage divorcing couples when the courts have said we want a clear, bright line, encourage divorcing couples to live together under the same roof? You're not going to want one of your constituents, after having supported this bill, come back to you and say, that piece of legislation is the reason I'm a battered wife. And that is the potential. The courts have said, clear, bright line. This legislature should pride itself on writing laws that are clear, easily enforceable, bright lines. Why in the world, when more than one court, there are two of them out there that have asked for this bright line, why in the world would we go muddy it up, and leave our constituents open at a time when they're most vulnerable to having to pay more for lawyers, to worry about domestic violence, and to do all the other things that right now, with the status quo, we get to avoid? Vote no on this bill. It isn't right. The courts are telling us not to do it, And I'm thinking your constituents are going to be asking you not to do this when they find out how we're muddying the waters and potentially putting them at risk. I urge a no vote.
Mr. Bloom, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll be brief on this issue. I'm probably the one on the floor who has the most experience in this actual field, having practiced family law for nearly 30 years in my career. The issue of data separation is almost always a factual issue. This idea of a bright line distinction is not one that should apply here. I can tell you from my personal experience that there are many times that I would have liked to advise my client to be able to stay in the house and not have to incur the expense of moving somewhere else. There are lots of circumstances where it is in your client's best interest to stay right where he or she is. And there are many circumstances when that is not the best advice. But there ought to be flexibility so that parties have the ability to make reasonable decisions. I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Bloom. All discussion having ceased on the item, Mr. Wilk, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank all my colleagues for the robust discussion. Again, I just want to reiterate, under the current court ruling, one spouse is forced to find and pay for alternative housing in order to establish a date of separation at a time when families may be trying to closely monitor their spending. Often they cannot afford to move to separate residence until after the divorce is finalized. SB 1255 simply allows the courts to look at all factors when determining the date of separation and allows the expression of intent to end the marriage in corresponding consistent conduct to constitute a complete and final break. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Wilk. Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 57, noes 4. The measure passes. File items 45 through 50 pass and retain. File item 51, SB 420. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 420 by Senator Huff and others, enacting into prostitution.
Ms. Garcia, you may open.
Mr. Speaker, members, currently there is no distinction in law between an adult who is selling sexual acts from the adult who is purchasing sexual acts, or from the adult who is purchasing sex acts from a minor. For the purpose of data collection, SB 420 divides Penal Code Section 647 into 3 separate sections in order to separate the buyers and sellers of human trafficking and prostitution into adults offering to engage in commercial sex with the buyer, solicitors of commercial sex acts from adults, solicitors of commercial sexual acts from minors. I respectfully ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia. Seeing no discussion or debate on the item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 68, no 0. The measure passes. File items 52 through 61 pass and retain. File item 62, SB 939. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 939 by Senator Monning, enacting into continuing care contracts.
Ms. Brown, you may open.
Thank you, Speaker and members. Senate Bill 939 provides consumer protections in future continuing care retirement communities, their repayable contracts from significant delayed repayment owed to the residents of their surviving heirs. Specifically, SB 939 creates an economic incentive for the CRC to make timely repayments by requiring these contracts to apply interest on delayed lump sum interest fee repayments after an average length of time that it takes the provider to resell a unit. The bill also prohibits the CCRC from applying monthly fees after a resident has vacated the unit and allows a provider to choose to repay before the resale. Not only does the bill sponsored by the CCRC residents because of the real stories of multi-year delays and the need for more protections on the repayments owed, SB 939 is also a product of negotiated compromises with the existing CCRC providers in California who are neutral on the bill. CCRCs are a critical part of California's senior housing And these protections will ultimately make this model of care more attractive for future residents as the demand grows. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Mr. Hadley, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I respectfully rise in opposition to this bill. I do want to thank the author for working constructively with the Aging Committee that my colleague is the chairwoman of. And this bill is a better bill than the bill the governor vetoed last year. It is prospective rather than retrospective with respect to contracts. But there are a couple of key things about this industry that I think people should understand. This is not a typical consumer protection issue. Approximately 80% of the CCRC beds that we have in California are nonprofit beds. This is not a two-way relationship between the operator and the resident. What it is a three-way relationship between the operator, the resident, and the fellow residents of the same CCRC. So what we are doing with this bill is we are interfering with the contract not just for the benefit of the resident, but at the cost, at the detriment of the fellow residents. And these fees and these interest rates are going to be directly borne by the fellow residents of these CCRCs. What California really has is a massive housing shortage. That is as true for seniors as it is for all other age groups in the state of California. And I respectfully request a no vote, and I would urge us to adopt policies and work on policies to make housing more affordable in California.
Ms. Bonilla, you're recognized.
I rise in support of this bill as chair of the Human Services Committee. We heard this. What we have here is something called a repayable contract. I think it's very fair for the consumers and their families to expect that repayment. This bill just makes sure and incentivizes the fact that there truly will be a repayment that is fair and just. I ask for your aye vote in support of this bill.
Thank you, Ms. Bonilla. Ms. Grove, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of this bill. You know, this bill came to Human Services Committee when we had the opportunity to ask the author quite a few questions. And one of the opposition comments that were made on this is that you can't control the real estate market. So why would you force CCRCs to sell or pay back a loan or pay back a property to an estate if they weren't able to sell the property? But this bill gives an exclusive exemption for 6 months. So they don't have to do it for 6 months. And if they can't sell it within the 6 months and pay back the estate after the person is deceased, then they only have a 4% interest rate. The problem that we've had is that a lot of times legislation can't be passed to address the abuser and the person that is causing the abuse, and then the people that caught in the middle. And what's happening is that some of these CCRCs are having these houses held for these beds or these units held for years on end without selling them to other occupants because they don't. They still get the revenue from exhausting the beneficiaries or where the estate sale is. So I think it's a good bill. It's a bill that we heard extensively and asked extensive questions in committee about, and I think it does give CCRCs the ability to have a 6-month waiting period. So if the market is down and then they only have a 4% interest rate and then it gradually goes up, I believe, to 6%, and then it stays at that percentage rate until the actual building is sold or the bed is sold or the unit is sold. I think it's a good incentive program, and I would ask for an aye vote.
Thank you, Ms. Grove. All discussion and debate having ceased on the item, Ms. Brown, you may close.
Thank you. I thank my colleagues from Kern County, Los Angeles County, and Contra Costa County for their comments. This bill has been worked on for 2 years. As was noted, the governor did veto it. But our colleague over in the Senate has worked and worked with everyone to make this bill work for the people of the CCRCs, and I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 48, Noes 21. The measure passes. File items 63 through 69 pass and retain. Members, we have a number of special guests remaining with us in the Assembly today. I would like to recognize Assembly members Gatto and DeBabney for their special guest introduction. Mr. Gatto.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now, it's in politics, a lot of people talk about one-issue voters, and I must confess I am a two-issue voter. The things I like to see in my elected officials are a big heart and a good head on their shoulders. And the person I'm about to introduce exemplifies both of those things. In my humble opinion, he's got the biggest heart and the best brain of anybody in politics, and that is my mentor, Congressman Brad Sherman. Congressman Sherman was kind enough to preside at my wedding twice. He also was, I got it right the second time. And he's also been just a terrific mentor. Nothing is more evidence of his mentorship than the fact that our state treasurer, John Chung, former Assembly member Paul Koretz, the gentleman from Woodland Hills, myself, and so many others learned politics and learned government with him. So I'd like to ask all of us to give a big Assembly welcome on your feet for United States Congressman Brad Sherman.
Mr. DeBabney, you are also recognized.
That's a hard act to follow. I can assure you he has never married me, but I will tell you he was a great mentor. The fact that his last two district directors have represented areas near and where he has served for nearly 20 years with distinction. His other district director currently, Scott Abrams, is in the back. He might be joining us soon. You never know. But I will tell you, it is really an honor to have him here today. And sometimes I think when we have very hard votes, I still use him as not only a friend and mentor, but as a consultant. So I appreciate you guys giving him a warm welcome. Thank you.
Okay, members, we have additional special guests with us. We want to acknowledge Mr. Kansenchu. You're recognized from Mr. Rambula's desk for your VIP introduction today.
Thank you, Mr. Speakers and members. I rise today to congratulate the San Jose Sharks, the 2016 champions of the National Hockey League's Western Conference, and am also pleased to honor the Sharks on their 25th anniversary. Founded in 1991, the San Jose Sharks started at the Cow Palace in San Francisco and played there until 1993, when the team moved to SAP Center in San Jose, better known as the Shark Tank. Since that time, fans from the Bay Area and all over California have come to San Jose to watch the Sharks take the ice. In their long 25 years history, the Sharks have qualified for the Stanley Cup playoff 18 times out of the 25 years and play in the Western Conference's finals in 2003, 2010, and 2011. And since 2005, hear this, Assembly Wilk, the Sharks have won more regular seasonal games than any other teams in NHL. Earlier this year, we all watched the Sharks defeated the St. Louis Blues in 6 games to win the Western Conference Finals. They went on to fight another 6 close games for the Stanley Cup. And while they didn't secure the win, they ignited the city of San Jose and all of California a greater sense of pride and community. The Sharks don't just excel on ice. Through the Sharks Foundation, they have also striven to enhance the lives of hundreds of youth and families and continue to give back to the community that they give so much to them. San Jose and the state of California are proud to honor our very own Sharks. Please join me and welcome John Totora, the Chief Operating Officer, and his wife Deborah, and Dan Resanowski, the radio play-by-play broadcaster, and our own Sharky of the San Jose Sharks mascot. And also in the gallery, we welcome to my left, Mary Grace Miller, the legal coordinator, Andrew Cooler, the counsel, Sean Morley, principal at the Morley Brothers, and Bill Wellman, architect and artifact coordinators, and Tim Pitno, the mascot manager. So please join me and give San Jose Sharks, say California warm welcome. Thank you.
Ms. Campos, you are also recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I join my colleague from San Jose, Milpitas, as we recognize the Sharks for being the Western Cup champions. And one of the things that makes us so proud about having the Sharks in our great city of San Jose is that as they continue to be in our valley in San Jose, as you drive through the streets, every corner you'll see the Shark jersey. But what is interesting is that when they are playing, you see the flags on every car window, and people get excited about it. I think my memory is a personal memory as the Sharks continued their journey in San Jose, is that my father had the opportunity to be an usher there. And Sharky was one of his greatest fans. And when he had the chance to be able to stand guard at the locker room, it was one of his greatest moments because he developed friendships with the players, but he always really enjoyed hanging out with Sharky. And so with that, I join my colleague in recognizing one of the great one of the great hockey teams in California, the Sharks. Thank you.
Dr. Quirk, you are recognized for your special guest introduction.
Thank you, Speaker. Today, members, we have student senators from Chabot Community College joining us today in the gallery. Chabot is located in the city of Hayward in my district. The students are here to learn a little more about how policymaking process works. Escorting them is former senator and member of this House, Ellen Corbett. Please give these students a warm assembly welcome. They're in the back of the chamber.
And finally, Mr. Patterson, for your guest introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I would like to ask you to welcome 10-year-old Nathan Bond and his family. They're seated in the gallery. Members, Nathan is one of the youngest Americans to recite the Declaration of Independence from memory, and that's according to the Guinness World Record. He's also memorized Articles 1 and 2 of the Constitution, the periodic table of elements, and all the presidents. By August, he will have the entire U.S. Constitution memorized, and that will make him, as far as we can tell, the only person in the world able to recite it by memory. Members, I invite you to join me in the Capitol Rotunda immediately following this session, where Nathan will recite the Declaration of Independence from memory. Thank you.
Members, we just have one announcement. Ms. Chang, you are recognized for your announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, just last week, this body approved a resolution to declare June as PTS Awareness Month. On that same day, Senator Steve Glazer led his Senate colleagues in the 22 push-up challenge. And I believe he's going to be joining us shortly after to also do more push-ups. I was staggered to learn that an average of 22 veterans take their lives every day. The push-up challenge is a campaign aimed at raising awareness for veteran suicide prevention. Some of our colleagues here in the Assembly have taken part of this campaign, and to continue raising awareness about the needs of our veterans who come home, I would like to invite all who are able to join me in the 22 push-up challenge here on the Assembly floor upon adjournment. If you cannot do 22 full push-ups, you can do modified push-ups or air push-ups to show your support. The challenge calls for you to do 22 push-ups for 22 days, so if you are able, I invite you all to join me in doing so. With that, members, drop and give our veterans 22. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chang. And very briefly, Ms. Brown, you have a special guest today.
I'd like to introduce to you Peyton Brown. She's a third grader, and she goes to Kenbark Elementary School in San Bernardino. Peyton is a great student, and she is a very, very wonderful young lady. Thank you.
All other items remaining will be passed and retained. All motions shall be continued. Pardon me, members. The session schedule is as follows. Tuesday, June 28th, check-in session. Wednesday, June 29th, check-in session. Thursday, June 30th, floor session at 9 a.m. Seeing and hearing no further business, I'm ready to entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Calderon moves. Ms. Waldron seconds. That this House stands adjourned until Thursday, June 30th at 9 a.m. Get ready for your push-ups. Quorum call is lifted.